Oh my god, that hurt. Hold on, hold on. Can I defend myself? No, let me defend myself. I can heal. I can heal. I got this. Ooh, god, that hurts. Oh my god, that hurts so much. Defensives. I got all of them. Heal. Okay, I'm okay. I'm not okay. I'm okay. No, I'm not okay. Oh, this is not how you're supposed to take. I don't. God. That's not how you're supposed to take. Hello everybody and welcome to the Evil Guide to the Paladin. I wanted to start things off by thanking each and every one of you for liking and subscribing and just watching the videos. It is awesome to see that we are trying to build this community and it is coming along strong. But that's not why you're here today. What you're here for is the Paladin Guide. Let's talk about a few abilities before we get into any specializations or when to play them, shall we? So let's start things off with Crusader's Strike. Strike the target for X physical damage, and then generates 1 holy power. Well, that sounds weird. What is holy power? Let's find out. Holy power is the resource that all paladins use. Some abilities generate it, some abilities consume it. It's like having an extra mana bar, except it's being generated and then used at will. Kind of cool. One of the other abilities that we have straight off the bat is Judgment. Judges the target, that's right. You judgmental people. Stop judging. And start judging the enemy. They need it. Dealing X damage. Pretty stagnant straight off the bat, but still works all the same. Another one that we have is Consecration. It's an instant cast ability. Consecrates the land beneath you, causing 29 damage over 12 seconds. To enemies who will enter the area. You can only have one of these on the ground at a time, so you're basically blessing the ground around you and dealing massive amounts of AoE damage to all enemies nearby. This is going to be pretty much your main AoE ability across all 3 specs, so definitely try and keep that in mind when playing. A few other abilities that we have straight off the bat are healing abilities. That's right, we actually have a healer this time around. Our first one up is Flash of Light. Expends a large amount of mana to quickly heal a friend for X health. Pretty cool. And then our other one, Word of Glory. And I love this spell. There's actually an old glyph back in the Cataclysm days that's called Bad Words, where you could actually use this ability to deal damage rather than just heal. But unfortunately now it is just a healing ability. Calls down the light to heal a friendly target for 109. There's a catch. There's no actual mana cost for this ability. What the heck? That's crazy. It is. Because Word of Glory costs 3 holy power. So, if you haven't already figured it out, you have to generate that holy power to use that ability. And that's what it means by, hey, some abilities can generate it, some abilities consume it. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, shall we? First things first, let's talk about the Protection Paladin, your tanking spec. Alrighty, Protection. Uses holy magic to shield himself and allies from attackers. That sounds pretty good, right? Yeah. So let's protect our allies, shall we? Let's find out what we do. First things first, we have Avenger Shield, your most awesome ability of all time. Especially going into Shadowlands, I know you guys are going to love this spell. Avenger Shield is a 15-second cooldown, so it's a long one. But it is a ranged ability. Hurls your shield at an enemy target, dealing X damage and then jumping to 2 other nearby enemies. This is fantastic for pulling large groups, or at least getting their attention long enough for you to get over there and start beating the crap out of them. One of your defensive abilities is Shield of the Righteous. This is an ability that you do have before level 10, but really doesn't make a whole lot of sense using it unless you're in Protection spec. Shield of the Righteous consumes 3 holy power. So this is another one of those abilities where you have to generate holy power before using it. Slams the enemy in front of you with your shield, dealing X holy damage and increasing your armor by X for 4.5 seconds. So, not only are you smacking him in the face with your shield, you're also giving yourself a little bit of extra protection during that time, which also sounds pretty awesome. Another ability that I really wanted to talk to you guys about was our Mastery as the Protection Paladin. Mastery is called Divine Bulwark. It is a passive, increases your chance to block melee attackers by X%. Also increases your attack power by X%. You're probably thinking, well, that's not bad actually, it's pretty good. Absolutely. Let's talk about rank 2 that you get at level 19. Mastery, Divine Bulwark rank 2. Damage taken while inside your consecration is reduced based off the amount of additional mastery. What? So you're telling me as long as I stand on holy ground, I take less damage and try and keep my allies alive just for a little bit longer? 2 thumbs up, let's do this. One of the other abilities that we actually have as well, that does actually replace our Crusader Strike, is Hammer of the Righteous at level 14. So what you do is your hammers the current target for X physical damage, so just the same as Crusader Strike as it is. However, while you're standing in your consecration, Hammer of Righteousness also causes a wave of light that hits all other targets within 8 yards, and still generates that incredible holy power. Now, the thing about this, you have to make sure that you're always standing somewhere in your consecration while playing the spec. It's a little unfortunate because you are very restricted while playing the spec, and it does suck just a wee bit, tiny bit, but that's okay, because you know what, as long as you're on holy ground, they are going to suffer, and you're going to make sure that happens, which is going to be awesome. So from levels 10 to 24, that's pretty much what you have. But the other thing that I really wanted to talk to you guys about was your talent. Your 3 talents are Holy Shield. It's a passive ability. Your block chance is increased by 15%, and you are able to block spells, and successful blocks deal 29 holy damage to your attacker. Now personally, this is my go-to because I like thinking defensively early game. Everything's going to be hitting you super hard, and the best way to do in the early game is just to survive. You also have Redoubt, another passive. Shield of the Righteous increases your strength and stamina by 2% for 10 seconds, stacked up to 3 times. Now that would be awesome, but in the early game, you're not really generating too much holy power for that to be viable. The third one, which is a common favorite amongst the late game, is the Blessed Hammer. Replaces the Hammer of the Righteous entirely. So you got rid of Crusader Strike, now you're getting rid of your hammers too. Let's find out why. It's an instant ability. Throws a Blessed Hammer that spirals around you, dealing X holy damage to enemies and reducing their next attack they deal to you by 84. That sounds pretty freaking cool, right? Comes up to a maximum of 3 charges and generates that 1 holy power. Not per hit, though. Keep that in mind, or else this would be broken, and I would absolutely use it. This is far more of an offensive ability, so if you're pretty confident in your tanking, I'm pretty sure you could take this with little to no care. Personally, I just prefer to focus up on my Holy Shield and make sure I survive for as long as possible. This does conclude our look at the Protection Paladins, level 10 to 24. Let's move on to our Holy Specialization. I will heal the mage if the mage
not
needs
using
help.
defensive. Heal me.
Are you serious?
Heal me.
I hate you so much. I want you to know that.
Heal me.
I'm stunned. I can't. And now I'm charmed.
Yeah! Fuck you!
No, polymorph! God damn it! I hate all of you. Now we have the Holy Paladin. You're thinking, what? The healer class? That's right. We invoke the power of the light to heal and protect allies and vanquish evil from the dark corners of the world. Now, a couple of quick notes I wanted to make sure to mention before I go further into this. The Holy Paladin, amongst all other healers in this game at this time, are extremely unique. The uniqueness in the regard for the Holy Paladin is its mastery. Mastery is Lightbringer. Passive ability increases the healing done by up to 12%, or whatever your mastery may be, based on the proximity of your target. So what that means, the closer you are to your targets, the better healing you have. Well, I personally consider the Holy Paladin be one of the absolute best healers in the entire game, late game. Unfortunately, it does have to kind of crutch itself up before it can really push its attack. Let's go over some of the basic abilities and why we have chosen level 24 to go to the Holy Paladin. Start things off with the basics. We have Holy Shock. This is your main stagnant ability of the Holy Paladin. It's an instant ability, costs some mana, triggers a burst of light on the target, dealing X holy damage or healing an ally for X amount. So, this is an offensive and defensive ability, not only to help heal your allies, but if your allies are good, hit the target. Beat the crap out of them. This also generates 1 holy power. So just as talked about earlier, we do generate holy power as much as we consume it. You still do have Word of Glory, Consecration, Crusader Strike, Judgment. You still have all these great abilities on top of Flash of Light. Some of the other abilities that you have gotten at this point, and the whole reason why we have waited so long to come to the Holy Paladin, is Infusion of Light. It's a passive ability. Your critical Holy Shocks reduce the cost of your next Flash of Light by 30% or increases your next Holy Light by 30%. Well, hold on. Never talked about Holy Light, guy. How about you tell me about Holy Light? Very well. Holy Light costs a mana, 2.4 second cast. So it's, as you can tell, a little bit of a longer cast. But it's an efficient spell healing a friendly target for X. Usually, that X is a lot bigger than Flash of Light, which is a 1.4 second cast, which just kind of quickly heals the target. So it's more like an, oh crap, I need to heal you now. That's Flash of Light. Holy Light's alright. Alright, you're going to take some damage. It's fine. It's fine. Let me cast. And then boom, you're healed. Same exact concept. Now, at level 18, we do actually get Holy Shock rank 2. And again, we're already past this point, so I wanted to make sure to bring this up to make sure you guys are aware. Holy Shock has an additional 30% chance to crit. This really does help with Infusion of Light. One of the other abilities that you do get is Divine Protection. It's only costs very little mana. It's an instant cast ability, a 1-minute cooldown. Reduces all damage you take by 20% for 8 seconds. Now, I can go over the basic concept of the Holy Paladin. The Holy Paladin, you're already in melee range to try and get the most efficient heals through your mastery, right? Fantastic. But if you're in melee range, that means you're down in the crap along with all your melee and your tank. That's not good. You are going to be shrugging off huge hits, but guess what? You were made for this. You're wearing plate armor, you have bonus armor, you have divine protection, you have all the tools in your toolkit to be a fantastic healer at melee range. This is how unfortunately, in some regards, the Paladin is supposed to be played. One of the other abilities that I have to make sure I mention is Light of the Martyr. Very low cost, and it's an instant cast healing ability. At 40 yards range, sacrifice a portion of your own health to instantly heal an ally for X. You take damage equal to 50% of that healing done. Does not cause your beaconed target of light to be healed. So, you're literally sacrificing your own health. You're literally saying, hey, take my health. You need to live, because you are the martyr of the group. And unfortunately, early game, not a lot of people understand your mastery. And that's very unfortunate. So it's your job to try and just be in melee and try and get everyone as much heals as possible. It's one of the most strenuous healing classes I personally have ever played. But if you can do it right, and if you talk to your groups, usually you are one of the most proficient healers early or late game. The only other ability that I have not really mentioned quite yet would be Beacon of Light, where you wrap a single ally in holy energy, causing your heals on other party or raid members to also heal that ally for 50% of the amount healed. So you're probably thinking, okay, so there's my AoE. That's right. You really don't have too much AoE healing until later game, but we'll talk about that when we get there. The one thing I want to mention to you is that using this beacon on yourself is not a bad call. Anybody who's taking damage, it's a very low mana cost, so you can spread it around how you need to. If you're trying to really focus up on healing on that tank, but one of your DPS just cannot get out of fire, place a beacon on them. That's all you gotta do. This way, you don't even have to look at them, and they're still receiving their heals. One last thing. Ooh, 2 last things. Good lordy. I need to get better at this. So, at level 29, you do get Judgment rank 3. Judgment causes the target to take 30% increased damage from your Holy Shock or Crusader's Strike. So remember, your Crusader Strike is also generating Holy Power that really helps buff up your main heal as Word of Glory, which still costs 3 Holy Power. So, you're constantly building up that Holy Power, and then you spend it on Word of Glory to really try and help make sure your allies live. That's your #1 priority. Let's talk about your talents. We start things off at rank 15 with Crusader's Might. It's a passive ability. Crusader Strike reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock by 1.5 seconds. This really does incentivize you to deal damage as a healer and really be generating those Holy Power abilities, such as the Almighty and the All Great Word of Glory. Seriously, biggest heal you have at the time, not a bad idea to try and just keep building up those stacks of Holy Power. This is definitely my recommendation here, but we do have still 2 other abilities, such as Bestow Faith. Now, I really do joke around about this ability very, very often, but if you really don't want to be in the nitty-gritty too often, you really don't have time to be dealing damage, you just want to heal, Bestow Faith is a great alternative, but it does come with a lot of downsides. Bestow Faith costs a bit of mana. It's at a 40-yard range instant cast, and it's a 12-second cooldown. Begin mending the wound of a friendly target, healing them for X amount after 5 seconds. So that means they're not receiving that heal until 5 seconds later. Bit of a downside to me. Usually, I'm much more of a reactive healer. I don't do great with determining when they're going to take damage because the people I usually heal, as you saw in the first clip, like to mess with me, so I don't really trust them. But it does also generate a 1 Holy Power upon healing. So, it's great for if you just want to heal, you really don't want to be melee swinging around, that's fine, it's just a little bit of a slower gameplay. Then you have Light's Hammer. It's a 40-yard range, 1 minute cooldown, costs quite a bit of mana. You hurl a light-infused hammer to the ground, dealing X holy damage to all nearby enemies and healing up to 6 nearby allies for X amount, every 2 seconds for 14 seconds. And you're probably already thinking, oh my god, that's an AoE ability. We finally get an AoE ability. Unfortunately, the heals that it's doing is just not enough for it to be viable, or the damage it is dealing. It's a really cool effect, and it's a really nice aesthetic, but if you're in group with people, it's not a great idea to have. Let's talk about 25. Saved by the Light. When an ally with your Beacon of Light is damaged below 30% health, they absorb the next X damage. You cannot shield the same person this way twice within 1 minute. So it is technically a 1 minute cooldown, even though your Beacon does not have that cooldown, but whatever. As a safety measure and precaution, if you just see this one DPS who just will not stop standing in fire, he sees the big ogre and decides, I'ma punch it in the face! And he just won't stop taking that damage, Save by Light is a fantastic alternative to just trying to keep that idiot alive. Just saying. My personal choice with early leveling, because it has saved a lot of groups from dying just because I had a beacon on them at the time. Judgment of Light. It's another passive. Judgment causes the next 25 successful attacks to heal the target, to heal the attacker for X amount. Now, the amount is usually very, very small, considering they have to hit them an extra 25 times. Usually, things are dying very quickly, so personally, I really don't see the point in this, even at late game. It's just not enough heals for me to really think of it as a viable solution. The last one, and my biggest mistake I made while early leveling, was Holy Prism. Costs a bit of mana, it's a 40-yard range, 20-second cooldown. Fires a beam of light that scatters to strike a clump of targets. A clump of targets? That sounds super weird. Let's find out who the clumps are. If the beam is aimed at an enemy target, it deals X amount of holy damage, and then radiates healing to 5 allies within 15 yards. So that means all your melee, if you hit the target with it, like the big enemy, those guys get healed. That's a great AoE ability, I thought. And then if you beam is aimed at a friendly target, it heals them for a larger amount, almost double, and then hits all enemies nearby for X amount within 15 yards. Great. AoE. I absolutely love this. This is awesome. That's what I thought too, until I found out that the healing it does at very early game is just not worth it. It's unfortunately not enough healing for me to take it seriously, and on top of the fact that the 20-second cooldown, it's helpful, but not in the way I was hoping. You're much better off just trying to focus up on your Beacon of Light and just doing Save by the Light, because unfortunately there's going to be those situations where you just can't heal them in time. So it kind of creates a safety block. Personally, that's what I prefer, but everyone has their own different ways of playing. Next up at level 30, we have Fist of Justice. This whole section is really personal preference, just based around how you choose to play. It's a passive ability. Each holy power spent reduces the remaining cooldown of Hammer of Justice by 2 seconds. Definitely an optimal choice. Having that stun off of cooldown, because it is a 1 minute cooldown, is awesome. But remember, a lot of enemies are still immune, so keep that in mind. Next one up is Repentance. Great at later game if you need a pack to stop. Use this on one of them, they'll stop in their tracks. It's a 30-yard range, 15-second cooldown. Forces an enemy to meditate, incapacitating them for 1 minute. Usable against humanoids, demons, undead, dragonskin, and giants. Blinding Light is our final one for this section. 1.5 minute cooldown. Emits a dazzling light in all directions, blinding enemies within 10 yards, causing them to wander disoriented for 6 seconds. Non-holy damage will break the disoriented effect. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I mean, I don't think everyone in my group's going to be a Paladin. And you're right. It is a very niche ability, but I personally choose it just because I like the idea of getting them off my group for at least 5 seconds, just so I can get back to my healing. Now that we have protected and healed our allies to make sure that they survive this unholy onslaught, let's talk about bringing and raining down fiery retribution on our enemies. Here is how you duel on the Retribution Paladin. What the heck? Ah! Why did you... You didn't even give me a chance to start my opener. Well, this is done. This is how you win, guys. This is how you win. Goodbye. The Retribution Paladin. Levels 34 to 43. Retribution. A righteous crusader who judges and punishes opponents with weapons and holy magic. You're probably thinking, are we back to judging? Really? Absolutely we are. Let's judge these guys. First things first, let's talk about our holy power using ability. Templar's Verdict for our single target ability. It's an instant with melee range, unleashes a powerful weapon strike that deals X holy damage to an enemy target. That sounds pretty awesome. It's a great single target ability. You just hit them as hard as you can. Easy. I like it. One other thing I wanted to mention early on is your mastery, Hand of Light. I personally really don't care for this mastery. It's kind of dumb. Increases holy damage done by 12.8%. Now, you're probably thinking, well, it's just a flat damage buff. That sounds awesome. It would be, if most of the abilities that are stagnant and that you use constantly were actually physical abilities, not holy abilities. So, bit annoying to me, but to others, you know, you do you. So, at level 16, we do get our rank 3 of Judgment, where it generates a holy power. That's all it does. So just now, Judgment is now generating holy power on top of your Crusader Strike. Pretty good. One of the other abilities that you have is Blade of Justice. It's a 12-yard range, so very slightly range ability. And its cooldown is reduced based off of haste. Keep that in mind. It is an instant. Pierce the enemy with a Blade of Light, dealing X physical damage, and generates a holy power. Now you're probably already wondering, wait, why have we not come to this spec earlier? Well, because at level 34, we finally get Blade of Justice rank 2. which really does smooth out the gameplay and really make sure, hey, we can play this efficiently, because it generates an additional holy power. Everything you do is based around spending that holy power on either Templar's Verdict or Divine Storm. Divine Storm costs 3 holy power. Instant ability, Whirl unleashes a whirl of divine energy, dealing X holy damage to up to 5 nearby enemies. This is your major AoE ability, but again, not really great from levels 10 to 34 because you're not generating enough holy power for it to actually be viable. That's my concern about playing this before that point, because it's very boring. If I'm not gonna lie to you. You don't generate enough holy power for you to actually like really hurt the enemy. It's not very smooth, it's kind of clunky until you get 34, where you're unleashing 2 Blades of Justice and you have a couple other passive abilities in the background that are working to your benefit, such as Art of War. Your auto attacks have an 8% chance to reset the cooldown of Blade of Justice, which again at 34 generates 2 holy power. Again, solidifying that it is much smoother to do that at the later game. Now at level 26, you do get a defensive ability, Shield of Vengeance, which is a 2-minute cooldown. Creates a barrier of holy light that absorbs X damage for 15 seconds. Alright, cool. So you get a defensive, but it's a 2-minute defensive. Let's find out why. When the shield expires, it bursts to inflict holy damage equal to the amount absorbed, divided among all enemies nearby. This is an uncapped AoE ability. Now, the real catch with this is to try and mid-max it. And you're probably thinking, well, this is supposed to be a smooth guide. I really don't think we should be talking about this. And you're absolutely right. But I'm going to talk about it anyway. So, the real catch with Shield of Vengeance I personally find is that if you're in a really nasty pack of AoE, put this on. Don't taunt off the tank. Trust me, he won't forgive you. But if there's a bunch of AoE, if there's fire on the ground, and you pop this and you know that you're not going to be taking damage again for a little bit, jump in that fire. Let the shield burn for as much as possible, and then let it burst, dealing damage to all enemies nearby, which, in my opinion, is pretty freaking awesome. Now, at level 29, we do have Judgment rank 4. Judgment causes the target to take 25% increased damage from your next holy power using ability, such as Templar's Verdict. This gives Templar's Verdict a 25% buff the next time you use it. One of the other reasons why I recommend 34 is because now Crusader Strike at level 33 is rank 3, where it gives you 2 charges of it. Again, really just kind of solidifying that gameplay, and letting you know you're generating holy power like crazy, and it's awesome. Finally, we could talk about the ability that you get after you have already been playing with this spec. Wake of Ashes. Instant ability, 45-second cooldown. Lash out at your enemies, dealing X radiant damage to all enemies within 12 yards in front of you, and reducing their movement speed by 50% for 5 seconds. Damage reduced on secondary targets. And if it's a demon or undead, it also stuns them for 5 seconds. Generates 3 holy power. This is the bombshell that you needed to really pull down this spec and make it your own. This really just kind of solidifies that gameplay where you're generating all the holy power in the universe. And it's awesome, and I love it. It's such a great ability. Let's talk about talents now. At level 15, we have Zeal, the passive. Judgment empowers you with Holy Zeal, causing your next 3 auto attacks to occur 30% faster and deal an additional X holy damage. Now, I've never really liked this talent personally. I really never saw the point in my regular attacks dealing bonus damage, but some people can find a great use for it, I guess. Not really my thing. Next up, we have Righteous Verdict. Another passive. Templar's Verdict increases the damage of your next Templar's Verdict by 15% for 6 seconds. This really does solidify and optimize the gameplay at 34 forward. which is why I always recommend this one for 34 forward, because now you're generating enough holy power to be able to keep using that Templar's Verdict within that 6-second window because of how much holy power you're generating. The third one in the row, which I also recommend actually, Execution Sentence. Costs 3 holy power. It is a 30-yard range, instant 1-minute cooldown. A hammer slowly falls from the sky upon the target. After 8 seconds, they suffer X holy damage, plus 20% of the damage taken from your abilities in that time, which is awesome, because that means if you blow up, if you use another great cooldown that we'll talk about later, during this time, they're going to take that much more. It's an excellent cooldown, mostly recommended for late game, because then you have a couple extra hands on deck before you use such an ability. Let's talk about level 25. Fires of Justice. Now, I can 150% recommend this one, especially if you're feeling a little bit starved for holy power. I do recommend this one 100% of the time. I don't personally use it because I'm an idiot. Let's just move forward. Its passive ability reduces the cooldown of Crusader Strike by 15% and grants it a 50% chance to make your next ability consume 1 less holy power. So, if you haven't already realized, you get 5 stacks of holy power. Well, you're thinking, alright, well, that's cool. That's enjoyable. You're damn right. Why? Because most of your abilities consume 3. If it consumes 1 less, then that gives you the opportunity to use Righteous Verdict and hit them twice as hard, twice as fast. Awesome. The one that I personally choose is Blade of Wrath, a passive ability. Art of War resets the cooldown of Blade of Justice 100% more often and increases the damage by 25%. I am more of a risky player. I like taking the gamble. And unfortunately, Blade of Wrath is definitely more of a gamble rather than an actual, real talent. The only other one that is on this tree is Empyrean Power. Crusader Strike has a 15% chance to make your Divine Storm free and deal 25% additional damage. Now, I usually don't recommend this one unless you're really thick in the AoE packs. But for the most part, I don't really use it. Again, for 30, personal preference. Now we have 35. Unbreakable Spirit. Reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield, Shield of Vengeance, and Lay on Hands by 30%. These are all 3 abilities that I haven't spoken to just yet, except for Shield of Vengeance, of course, which I will speak to later. Cavalier. Divine Steed now has 2 charges. Cavalier is your movement speed ability. Divine Steed. Leap atop a charger for 3 seconds, increasing your movement speed by 100%. Usable while indoors or in combat. Eye for an eye. 1-minute cooldown. Surround yourself with a bladed bulwark, reducing physical damage taken by 35% and dealing 75% physical damage to any melee attackers for 10 seconds. This is a fantastic defensive ability that I can recommend if you're just dying constantly, honestly. If you feel like, alright, I'm constantly being surrounded, I'm just doing my solo gameplay, I really don't want to do dungeons, but I'm still getting the crap beat out of me anytime an extra enemy sees me, eye for an eye, definitely my recommended. Then at level 40, we have Divine Purpose. Ooh, I love this ability so much. Holy power abilities, such as Templar's Verdict or Divine Storm, have a 15% chance to make your next holy power ability free and deal 20% increased damage or healing, because don't forget, Word of Glory is still on your bars as well. So let's say you're really in the crap, you're taking a lot of damage, it's really hurting. Well, let's just, do a quick Word of Glory on himself. Oh, what? I could Templar's Verdict for free and deal 20% bonus damage? Take that swing. Next up, we have Holy Avenger, an instant 3-minute cooldown. Your holy power generation is tripled for 20 seconds. Now, I don't usually recommend this one because the cooldown on it is really, really long. 3 minutes is a long time to wait for a 20-second cast time where, guess what? Every holy power you generate is tripled. That's awesome, but not my personal thing on a 3-minute cooldown. If it was 2 minutes, I definitely recommend it. And lastly, we have Seraphim. Cost 3 holy power, instant cast, 45-second cooldown. The light magnifies your power for 15 seconds, granting 8% haste, critical strike, and versatility, and 13% mastery. Now, this is definitely a viable talent, but you're wasting your holy power on an ability that's a 45-second cooldown, only lasts 15 seconds. If you're really trying to focus up on your secondary stats, then it's fantastic, and it does create a little window of burst damage, but again, not my personal preference amongst the three. Now that we have reviewed all 3 specializations of the Paladin, let's go over some basic and stagnant abilities that you have amongst all 3 that I haven't gone over up to this point because they really don't affect the gameplay of each spec, but they really do have a part to play on the Paladin itself. Let's start things off with Redemption at level 13. It's a 40-yard range, brings back a dead ally from the dead with 35% mana and health. So you pretty much have a resurrection. Pretty good. Now, for the Protection Paladin, we also have Hand of Reckoning. Commands the attention of an enemy, forcing them to attack you. This is your taunt ability on the Protection Paladin. I haven't mentioned it in the Protection part because usually I don't use it. Usually Avenger Shield's enough for me to grab their attention and keep it. One of them that I did mention in the Retribution video is Divine Steed that you get at level 17. Next up at level 21, we have Crusader's Aura. Increases mounted speed by 20% for all party members and raid members within 40 yards. Not really a main key factor to the Paladin, but it is a nice little blessing. Speaking of blessings, Blessing of Freedom at level 22. Costs very little mana, 40-yard range. Instant 25-second cooldown. Blesses a party or raid member, granting them immunity to movement impairing effects for 8 seconds. Next up at 24, Turn Evil. 20-yard range, 15-second cooldown, 1.4-second cast. The power of the light compels an undead, apparition, or demon to flee for up to 40 seconds. Damage may break this effect. Only one target can be turned at a time. Level 28, and trust me, if you are holy, you're gonna want this. Devotion Aura. The only aura that actually does something until someone else dies, but we'll go over that later. Party and raid members within 40 yards are bolstered with their devotion, reducing damage taken by 3%. And you're probably thinking, well, it's just 3%. Yeah, but that's 3% that you could just have on you at all times. Next up, we have Blessing of Protection. It's a 5-minute cooldown. Blesses a party or raid member, granting immunity to physical and harmful effects for 10 seconds. Cannot be used within 30 seconds on the same target. Next up, you have Blessing of Sacrifice. This one is a very tricky ability to master because of its potential. It's a 40-yard range, 2-minute cooldown. Blesses a party or raid member, reducing their damage taken by 30%, but you suffer 100% of that damage. Lasts 12 seconds until transferred damage would cause you to fall below 20% health. Now, this one is an extremely hard ability to master because you're literally taking the damage for your ally, but they're only taking about 30% of that. Kind of tricky to master, but is super, super duper helpful when the time comes. Next up at level 37, we have your major cooldown amongst all 3 specs, Avenging Wrath. This is a 3-minute cooldown. Call upon the light to become an avatar of Retribution, increasing your damage, healing, and critical strike chance by 20% for 20 seconds. You're immediately thinking, hold the phone, friend. What just happened? Let me explain. So, with Avenging Wrath being the major cooldown for all 3, it does fit into all 3 specs fairly easily. The problem is you don't get it until 37, so you're mainly going to see it if you follow the guide for Retribution, where your critical strike chance is increased for 20% and your damage is increased by 20% for those 20 seconds. That is awesome. You legitimately pop wings on your back, showing your holy light and showing that you will definitely kick someone in the face. It's so good. I absolutely love this. And it is legitimately known as wings for most paladins. Next up at 38, we have Retribution Aura. When any party member within 40 yards dies, you gain Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds. Now, asking your friends to die so you can have a damage boost is perfectly normal, and you should always do that. Just letting you know. Then, at level 43, you get Avenging Wrath rank 2. This is amongst all the specializations. Cooldown reduced by 60 seconds. So, instead of Avenging Wrath being a 3-minute cooldown, it drops it all the way down to a 2-minute cooldown. I know how awesome that is because it's so good. Because now you can literally pop your wings and waste everything in front of you every 2 minutes, which does kind of really match up with your other cooldowns within each individual spec. The only one that really, and I can't even say this now because it really does actually fit the parameter for that one as well, was Protection. But now that you're really self-healing on your Protection Warrior, when you pop wings, that means you are in a bad place and you need to get your health back. So such as a Word of Glory proc, which at this time does a lot more health, which we'll talk about here in a minute, really does help to have that extra 20%. It really does fit amongst all three of them and is your major cooldown. Hello everybody, welcome to the end of the Evil Guide for the Paladin video, where we sit down and finally talk about, hey, what happens from point A to B. So, past level 24, a couple of abilities that have changed a little bit is that you now have 2 charges of Righteous Hammer of the Righteous, which is awesome. You still have your Consecration, you have Blessing of Sacrifice, and then you have your Word of Glory, as when Protection spec. If you cast it on yourself, healing is increased by up to 300%. So I wanted to make sure I build up some charges before I went and took on Jerk up here, who you did see beat the crap out of me. So let's get myself a little bit low. That's big me. Alright, and then I use Word of Glory. Boom, back up. Do it again. Oop, he's gonna kill me. Nope, not gonna happen. Nope, 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 nope. A couple of the other defensive abilities that you do have in your arsenal is Ardent Defender. Reduces all damage you take by 20% for 8 seconds. Probably sounds pretty familiar from the Holy Paladin. While Ardent Defender is active, the next attack that would otherwise kill you will instead bring you to 20% of your maximum health. So it is kind of very similar to like a Purgatory. It is an immediate res to try and help you get your health back. One of the other ones is Guardian of the Ancient Kings. This is a 5-minute cooldown. Empowers you with the spirit of Ancient Kings, reducing all damage you take, regardless of physical, magical, by 50% for 8 seconds. I gotta get out of combat with this guy. He was gonna beat the crap out of me. And then now you also have Cleanse Toxins, which you cleanse a friendly target from all diseases and poisons as well. So, let's talk about your talents at this point. So I'm still rocking that Holy Shield. Next up, at level 25, I have First Avenger. Avenger Shield hits 2 additional targets and grants you an Absorb Shield for 100% of all damage it deals. There was a slight difference as well, but we're going to go over that in a second for Avenger Shield. Crusader's Judgment. Judgment has 2 charges, and Grand Crusader also now grants a charge of Judgment. Sounds pretty good. Not my personal recommendation, however, just because I really don't use Judgment too often. As much as it does increase the damage I take, or damage done with Shields of Righteousness, not really my thing for me at least. Then you have Moment of Glory. Reset the cooldown of Avenger Shield. Your next 3 Avenger Shields have no cooldown and deal 20% additional damage. This is a serious cooldown. For 1.3 minutes, or 1.5 minutes, it's actually a really great cooldown to have. But again, I really kind of focuses on the damage aspect. I just want to survive. Then you have your choice of Fist of Justice, Repentance, or Blinding Light. Then you have Unspeakable Spirit, which I don't believe I talked about. Let's talk about these abilities real quick, shall we? So you have Lay on Hands. Heals a friendly target for an amount equal to 100% of their maximum health. Again, with forbearance. And then you also have Divine Shield. Grants immunity from all damage and harmful effects for 8 seconds. You've had these since level 10, but again, they weren't really relevant to any one spec in particular, so I wanted to go over it now. You have Cavalier. Then you have Blessing of the Spell Warden. Replaces Blessing of Protection. What this basically does, without going too far into it, is it switches from physical abilities to magical abilities. Again, you really have to do your research for this one to be viable. I personally don't take it because I really like to be movement heavy, so I go with Cavalier. Then on the final tree, you have Divine Purpose, Holy Avenger, or Seraphim, which I have already gone over with you guys. Personally, you could take any one of these three, and it's perfectly viable. The only one I personally don't recommend is still Holy Avenger, because that cooldown is just too long for me to see it as viable. It is fantastic as a great defensive cooldown. This way you can get your Word of Glories up and really heal yourself back up to full at a drop of a hat. But you get the same kind of thing with Divine Purpose, which I personally recommend, because if I use Divine Purpose on these guys here, if it procs for me here, it will not proc for me here. That's okay. What Divine Purpose allows me to do is use that Word of Glory at the drop of a hat, just like that, see? So I can immediately Word of Glory back up, everything's back to fine. Or, for instance, if I'm taking too much damage, I try Word of Glory, doesn't proc. If Divine Purpose does proc, I immediately can go back into Shield of Righteousness, or I could Word of Glory again, because I am just dying for whatever reason in particular. Again, super helpful when the time comes down to it. Let's swap over to Holy, shall we? As for Holy, from level 34 forward, let's see what I got. So nothing really changed around your base abilities, but they did grant you an extra one, which is, where did it go? There we are. Light of Dawn and Aura Mastery were your two ones that they had added in after the fact. Light of Dawn costs 3 holy power. So this is another one of those abilities that really costs you more holy power. Unleashes a wave of holy energy, healing up to 5 injured allies within 15 yards as a frontal cone for 203 health. So, for instance, let's say we're doing damage. We're not doing damage. Good lord. It's so hard to do this on a healing dummy. Let's go beat the crap out of this guy. So now that we have 3, we have a choice. Oop, we also have Divine Purpose. Love it. We could either do an AoE heal, healing multiple targets, or we could stick to our Word of Glory and simply heal a single target. This does give you a fantastic choice between, hey, are we healing the group this time, or are we healing a single target for a massive amount? Entirely up to you, but it does kind of create that choice, which is always so appreciated. Let's go over some talents. For Holy, we already went over Crusader's Might and Light, Saved by the Light. Now, again, 30, personal preference. And then I personally choose Cavalier over Unbreakable Spirit, which we've already gone over, and then Rule of Law. Has a 30-second recharge, increases the range of your heals and the reach of Mastery, Lightbringer, by 50% for 10 seconds, has 2 charges. This one is a fantastic ability if, for whatever reason, your guys in your group don't realize, hey, I'm a Paladin. I could only heal you if you're right next to me. This kind of eliminates that problem, where it kind of does that extra healing with a longer range. I highly recommend this if you're not too confident in your healing yet. This one is just an extra button to push, but it is definitely worth having. And then on the bottom here, we have Divine Purpose, Holy Avenger, and Seraphim. Now, Divine Purpose is probably going to be one of your absolute most favorite abilities. The problem is that it does share a proc appearance as your, what was it called? Infusion of Light. So you're going to think you have Divine Purpose when in reality you only have Infusion of Light. Kind of a bummer. but that's okay. Because Divine Purpose still really does help you in those nasty situations. And of course, I'm more of the gambling type, so I love the gambling. So what this pretty much does is allow you to send off those extra heals in times of need. But again, Seraphim in this particular regard is not a bad choice. Holy Avenger, again, is my least chosen, but it does generate that extra holy power for that time. So let's say your entire group is dying, you really need to get some heals out fast. Holy Avenger, pop it, go nuts, it's awesome. One final ability, and the cooldown for this one in particular, for Avenging Wrath. Do not forget that you still are running Infusion of Light. So the better the critical strike chance that you have, the better off you are in a fight. Because then you get more and more of those Infusions of Light. So you can use it. And guess what? Boom. Do it again. Let's use Holy Shock. Not that time. Okay, that's okay. The idea is still there where you're constantly critical striking on your opponent or on your ally to get better chances of that critical striking, which is awesome. Alright, last up, I just wanted to thank all of you guys for watching this video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. Let me know, hey, am I doing okay in the comment section? Or if you really like this video, share it around. It really does help. It does help a lot just to kind of build this community and make sure that I'm doing right by you guys. And always remember, don't forget to like, subscribe, and obey.